Middle School Embassy, welcome to another YouTube premiere party. We are so glad that you have joined us here in YouTube land tonight. This is obviously not the ideal. This is not how we want to be meeting, but we're going to work with what we've got. And so because we're working with what we've got, that actually means that we've extended Middle School Embassy. So we're actually in the second week of a brand new series that we're going to dive into here in just a minute. But before we dive in, I just want to give you guys a couple of announcements, a couple of things that you guys need to know about. First of all, don't forget that right after this message is over, if you look right down here in the description of the video, you will find our small group discussion questions. Make sure that you work through those, even if it's just by yourself. Ideally, grab a family member, a parent, or a sibling, and work through those questions together. But if you can't find any of those or you don't want to do that, that's okay. Just make sure that you work through and think about your answers to those questions below. The second thing that I want to remind you of is that right over here, we've got a live chat feature that's going. All of your small group leaders are over there. Check in and let us know that you're over there. We'd love to at least say hi to you there and interact with you a little bit. Two more pieces of news. The first one is not news. You should already know about it, but just as a friendly reminder, there is no mission trip happening this summer. It was canceled by the organization. It was not our decision, but they've chosen to cancel it, and so we're not going to be going to Oklahoma City in August. We're still going to be doing something. We don't know what that something is yet. We're working to figure that out and kind of waiting to see how all of this stuff plays out over the summer. It will be something local, and we'll probably work with City Church, but I'm not sure about that yet, so don't quote me. A lot of you guys right now are asking about camp, and that's a great thing to ask about. And the fact of the matter is that we still don't know. We're waiting until May 2nd. The board meeting of El Porvenir Christian Camp is going to have a meeting on May 2nd to make their final determination as to what's going to be happening for the summer. So I'll have more information on May 2nd, which means I'll be able to communicate with you guys better after that. So those are the announcements that we've got today. I'm going to throw it to the bumper video real quick. We'll do the bumper video, and then we'll come right back and dive into week 2 of the big picture. See you guys in a second. So in this series called The Big Picture, we're looking at the life of a character in the Old Testament named Joseph. Now, this is not Jesus' dad, Joseph. This is Jesus' great times 100 grandpa, Joseph. Except it's his great uncle. It's irrelevant. Doesn't really matter. Jesus, Joseph, not directly related. Doesn't matter. We're looking at this character in the Old Testament who we can learn a lot from. And we can learn a lot from Joseph because Joseph had a pretty crazy life. He had some really weird, inconceivable, surprising, sad things happen to him. And just like in our own lives, God was working in the life of Joseph on a bigger picture that Joseph really couldn't see. But we can learn some lessons from how Joseph handled his situation. But before we get into the next part of the story of Joseph, I want to ask you guys a question. Just be real with me for a moment, if you will. What is the biggest loss that you have ever experienced? Was it when your team blew its shot at the championship game in the final minutes? When your friend got more Instagram followers than you did? Was it when someone else earned the lead in the play or got first chair in the orchestra and you thought that you were a shoo-in for that role? I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of in the middle of dealing with my own pretty significant loss. Just today's Saturday. I'm recording it on Saturday, this message. And on Thursday, I had to put my dog down, Drifter, who's older than all of you. I had this dog for 16 years. He was one of my closest companions, and he was He was just great, just this really great animal, everything that you would want in a dog. And I got him in 8th grade. And so it's pretty crazy that I had my dog in 8th grade through high school and then through college, and then like got to introduce my childhood dog to my wife and to my daughter. It's a really, really awesome thing that I get to have, but I had to make the hard decision to put him down on Thursday, and that was a really, really sad day for me. So I'm right in the middle of navigating this hurt and loss, and I don't know what your hurt and loss might be, but I just want you to know that you're not alone, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So let's dive into that a little bit more. We all know what it's like to experience loss in life, because if we're honest with ourselves, life really is just one long series of wins and losses. Sometimes you ace that test that you studied all week for, and sometimes, well, you don't. Sometimes mom and dad let you stay up late and watch a movie, and, well, sometimes they don't. Sometimes that girl that you really, really, really like also really, really, really likes you, and sometimes she doesn't. It's wins and losses. And of course, when we're winning in life, it feels great. I mean, there's no better feeling than winning. We feel great because things aren't just going our way, but they're going even better than our way. But almost as quickly as the wins come, so do the losses. And when those losses happen, the difficult, tough, painful things, suddenly life just really doesn't feel that great anymore. And some of you know this because you've dealt with significant losses in the past. Some of you may be dealing with a few in your life right now. Maybe you have parents who are really critical and really hard on you and tough at home, so much so that you don't really feel like you can do anything right. Maybe you've just recently moved schools or even moved into town, and you're trying to figure out who your friends are going to be and what your friend group is going to look like, and you just feel really lonely and left out. Maybe your boyfriend or girlfriend just like broke up with you, and while it's a middle school relationship, like that was still a real thing, and you're not quite sure how to navigate or handle the rejection or the hurt that you're feeling. Friends, all of us are in the middle of experiencing loss right now, the loss of normalcy, the loss of routine, and just kind of figuring out like how do we deal with this social distancing quarantine situation that has caused us to miss the whole second half of our school year with our friends, canceled our track and baseball and basketball seasons. It's put an end to plays and orchestra concerts and all of the things that you look forward to in this time of year. No matter the loss that you faced in the past or the ones that you might be dealing with right now in this moment, the reality is that losses in life are coming. Losses are an unavoidable part of being human. And we've all got something in our life that causes us pain or heartache or disappointment. And when we're in the middle of that pain and heartache and disappointment, it's really, really hard to see the bigger picture. In fact, it's hard to see anything other than that hurt and pain and frustration, that anger and loneliness that we feel because of the loss that we're experiencing. But what if there was more than that? What if there was a way to get through the losses? What if there was a bigger picture that we may just be missing out on along the way? Now, if anybody understands what it's like to be caught in the middle of hurt and pain and frustration, it's our guy Joseph, who we've been talking about. Just in case you missed out on last week or you forgot and have slept since then, let me just give you a little rundown on Joseph real quick. He's the second of 12 brothers, and by second, I actually mean the second youngest, all right? He's the second youngest of 12 brothers, which is a pretty difficult spot to be in already, but not only was he the second youngest of 12 brothers, he was also the favorite. And it's not just like Joseph thought he was the favorite. No, his dad told him, hey, you're my favorite. And his dad told his brothers, hey, Joseph is my favorite. So his brothers didn't like him very much, right? You can imagine that they were pretty annoyed with the way that their father loved Joseph. And they were jealous and hurt and angry, so much so that they came up with a plan to deal with Joseph. And here's what that plan looked at like. They saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Whoa. That escalated really quickly. I'm sure that you've been annoyed with siblings before, and I'm sure that your annoyance has manifested itself in ways like, picking on them or pulling their hair or locking them in a closet or locking them out of the house or making fun of them in front of their friends to make them feel smaller and embarrass them. Hopefully none of you have ever thought, I'll just kill him, get him out of the way, handle him that way. But that's exactly what Joseph's brothers decided to do with Joseph, literally, physically end his life. It continues. Here's what happened next. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe that he was wearing, and they took him and they threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. And at this point, you may be thinking two things. First thing is this. Joseph's brothers are troublemakers. They are deep trouble. They're bad news. I want nothing to do with them. The second thing that you might be thinking is, what in the world is a cistern? So let me address point 2 here for just a second and clear it up. A cistern is simply a well, okay? And what a well is that like in the ancient days, in the ancient world, they didn't have running water, faucets and all this stuff. So they had to dig a hole, and they had to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig until they found water. And that hole then would fill up with water. And it was usually really, really deep hole. So they would have to get a bucket, and they would tie their rope to it, and then they would like toss the bucket down into this well, right? And it would land in the water, and then it would fill up with water. That's water filling up, by the way. And then they would use the rope to pull the water back up, right? And that's how they got water. So imagine doing that every time you use water. That's how things operated there. And so they have this empty well or cistern here that they're hanging out around, and they decide that's a great place to throw Joseph. So they haven't killed him yet, which is great news, but as soon as he got within their reach, they grab him, they take away his cloak that his father has given him, and they throw Joseph into an empty well. Now, if I was Joseph and I had just been beaten up and attacked and robbed and thrown into a well by my brothers, I would think, this is it. I mean, this is game over. This is the ultimate loss. It can't get much worse than this, right? And as the narrative of Joseph unfolds over the next couple of verses, one of his older brothers decides, hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't kill Joseph. But we can sell him into slavery. In fact, look, right over here, there's some traders. There's a caravan of Egyptians. Hey guys, come over here. We've got this slave guy, and I was just wondering how much you would like to buy him for. Oh, that much? Yeah, that sounds awesome. We'll take them. You can take this guy. His name's Joseph. You can have him. We'll take the money. See you later. And they sell their brother into slavery. And if that sounds like the next hit show on Netflix, it's probably because it would make a really great show. Like, this is crazy things. And not only did they do that, they took his favorite robe, the robe that his dad had given him, they ripped it up, they dipped it in blood, they took it to his dad, and they said, hey, Dad, we found this, and it looks like your son's. Is this your son's robe? And he says, oh my gosh, yeah. There's blood all over it. Like, he must be dead. And they're like, yeah, he must be dead. I don't know. Must be dead. This is weird now because we sold him, but we're not going to tell you that. He's dead. He's dead. Right? And while your story may not be very much like Joseph's at all, you probably know the feeling of being dealt loss and pain in your life. In a way, you could probably relate to Joseph. I think that we all can. And here's what I think is so interesting about this particular passage of Scripture. The entire narrative about Joseph and the things that happened to him, he never spoke a word or uttered a response. At least that's recorded. I'm sure he said, like, what are you guys doing? Ow, stop, it hurts. But it's never recorded. He had no control at all over what was happening to him. It just happened to him. He couldn't do anything about it, and as far as we know, he didn't even have a chance to speak up or to try and stop it. The losses that Joseph was dealt were totally and completely out of his control. And a lot of times, our losses look the same way. We find ourselves in situations that we feel are hopeless and difficult, painful, and we feel totally and completely out of control. We have no words and no power and no control. It's just happening to us. And like Joseph, there isn't much that we can say or do to stop it. And that's a pretty hopeless place to be, right? I don't know about you, but when I found myself feeling sold out, when I found myself at the bottom of a pit, completely and totally lost, I certainly can't see the bigger picture. I can't see any purpose at all behind the pain that I'm experiencing right in that moment. If someone had told me God is working on a bigger picture or writing a bigger story, I would have a really, really hard time believing them because in this moment, I can't see it. But within just a couple of verses of Joseph's story comes this simple verse that I think gives us an idea of the bigger picture that we can hold on to in the middle of our losses. It's 5 words. The Lord was with Joseph. Just 5 words. When Joseph's brothers were attacking him, when he was tossed into the well, when he was left for dead, when he was sold into slavery, God was with Joseph. Even when he couldn't see it or didn't feel it, when he had no idea what was going to happen next, God was with Joseph. And that's the bigger picture that I want you to hold on to in the midst of your own pain today. When you can't see the bigger picture, remember, God is with you. In whatever pit that you feel like you're in, God is in it with you. In whatever circumstances feel out of your control, God is with you. In whatever loss you're facing in life right now, God is with you. That's the bigger picture. That's the thing that will help you carry on and keep going no matter what. Now, I know that phrase, God is with you, it can be a little confusing at times. And I think that part of this is because we hear this phrase and we think, well, if God is with us, he's going to change our circumstances, right? If he's with us in the pit, that means that he's going to try and pull us out of the pit and turn things around, right? Yes and no. God is always working for our good. He wants what is best for our lives. So when we're facing loss or pain of any kind, we can certainly believe that he is working to make those things better in his time. But it may not happen right away. It may not happen in the way that we expect it to happen. And while we're waiting, God is there with us. He doesn't pull us out of the pit. If he doesn't pull us out of the pit, he gets right down in the pit with us. And until things change, we can cling to the fact that he is there with us. We are not in the pit alone. So if you're facing a deep loss, a difficult circumstance, or a painful experience right now in your life, and frankly, all of us are, here's what I want you to know. When you can't see the bigger picture, remember, God is with you. And you can start by doing these 2 things. First thing you can do is believe that God is with you. For some of us, the best thing that we can do right now is simply remind ourselves daily that God is with us. He is in whatever you're facing with you. every day, when you wake up, before your feet hit the floor, think to yourself, God is with me. Say it out loud. God is with me. Write it on a note beside your bed. Put it on a mirror. Put it on your hand. Put it on the eyelids of your eyes. God is with me. Pray that as a prayer. Pray that as a prayer. Whatever you have to do to remind yourself of this truth, God is with you wherever you are. And friends, let that be enough to get you through one day, and then do the exact same thing the next day. One day at a time, remind yourself, God is with you in your pain and your loss. The second thing that you can do is look for God's presence. Look for his presence to prove it. It's one thing to say that God is with us, and I believe that that is true, but it's another thing to begin to see God with us. And friends, God shows himself to us in so many ways. Through music, through nature, through scripture and friends and family and our church community. He even speaks to us in our hearts. So this week, as you're remembering that God is with you, keep your eyes open to see him in the songs that you sing at church and with your family and on the radio, to the trees outside your bedroom window, in the verses that you read in your Bible each day. Look for his presence in the way that your friends make you feel, when they make you feel better, or how your parents take care of you, or in the way that your small group leaders and your youth pastors encourage you. All of these things are evidence of God's presence with you right here, right now, and it will help you get through any loss, big or small, that you may be facing. So, when you can't see the bigger picture, remember, God is with you. And as we wrap up tonight and turn our attention to our questions below, here's one thing that I want you to think about. What is one way that I know God is with me? I love you guys so much, and I want you to know that God is always with you. And friends, me and Jake, we're here with you too. We love you, and we'll talk to you soon.